In this video, we're doing some speed tests with the brand new 14-inch MacBook Pro against our old 13-inch MacBook Pro and our old Intel iMac 2. So in this video, we're going to be testing out Final Cut and Premiere to see how the export times are with the new Mac versus the old. So let's jump into it. Hey there, welcome to the video. So as I mentioned in the intro, this is going to be a speed test video, and we're going to take a look at how editing on the new 14-inch MacBook Pro goes in Final Cut. Essentially, this is my new MacBook Pro. This is the 14-inch MacBook Pro with the 10-core CPU and 16-core GPU. And this is my old Mac. This is the 13-inch MacBook Pro, and this is the 2 GHz quad-core Intel Core i5 with 16 gigabytes of RAM, and of course it only comes with the Intel Iris Plus graphics. So of course there should be a big difference here. And this isn't a scientific test, this is like a real world test. If you have a year-old MacBook Pro, should you upgrade to the 14-inch? You're going to be in the same situation as me. And we've got an old iMac that we use for Premiere Pro. So in this video, we're going to do some tests with Final Cut Pro first, and then we're going to jump into Premiere Pro. These are just real world tests, our real world feelings of these new Macs. And if you want to jump ahead, make sure to check out the timestamps in the video. So if you're just bothered about Premiere Pro, you can jump to Premiere Pro, but I think you'll want to watch the whole video. So let's get into it. Let's test out Final Cut Pro first. So this is the new 14-inch MacBook Pro. Now, before we jump into Final Cut, we might do some speed tests actually with the SD card reader through USB-C and one with the built-in SD card reader on the new Mac, just to see how fast that is. So let's open up Final Cut, and I've basically put together a very rough project, some videos I was working on before, and just called this one the M1 test, just so you can see how Final Cut loads, how it plays back footage. And I've got to say, from using this already, it seems a lot faster than the 13-inch MacBook Pro. Saying that, it looks like it's crashed now, so let's see what happens here. Oh dear, not a good start for the 14-inch MacBook Pro. Oh, there we go, we're in. So, essentially, I've got a little project here. Let me just turn the volume down, and let's just zoom out a little bit. So you can see, this is all footage from the Sony a7S III. This is 10-bit footage, and it's also got a LUT on it. And then later on in the video, what I've done, this is just a rough cut. This isn't a proper video. These are just shots from when I went back to Norwich to see my family. You can see here, I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 4K clips and an editor's keys, orange and teal LUT on it, just to see how it plays back. And this is what I've been really surprised about. So first of all, let's maybe play that scene back there. So you can see here we've got an adjustment layer on, which is the LUT, and as we play through this footage here, we're going to get to the 4K clips, and I've got this in full resolution. Actually, let me just check that. So yeah, we've got this in better quality, as you can see up here. So let me just play that through. So this is in better quality. This is 4 or 5 4K clips in full resolution with a LUT on, and as you can see at the moment, it's playing absolutely smooth, even with the color correction LUT on. And let's see what happens when we have all of these clips playing side by side. And I don't know if you can see this, but there's no lag at all, not even in the slightest. They all play back nice and smooth. They've all got this adjustment layer applied to them. And my old Mac, I don't think could really do that. Obviously, I'll try that in a moment. The other thing I was surprised about was just how well you can do things like 3D titles. So let's just say, let's just put one of those 3D titles that we all really never use because they're all a bit power hungry. Let's go to the titles. Let's go to 3D. Let's go to this 3D rotate. Let's drag this on. Let's drag this out. And let's just change this to, let's change the text to something else. Driving countryside. Okay, I'm just going to drag this out. Now, on my old Mac, this would never play. And again, we're in full quality here. So let's just hit play. And you can see it doesn't lag. The footage doesn't really lag at all. My driving's a bit jumpy on this country road, but the 3D text plays fine and it'll kind of do its animation out. There we go, and it's absolutely smooth. Next, let's just try another title on. Now I've got these, where are we? I've got some really good, nice titles from Motion VFX and Pixel Film Studios, and they're really great, but they are kind of like memory hogs. They do take up a lot of sort of processing power, essentially. So let's just drag one on. I'm trying to think of one that was particularly tough. So let's look through these. So we've got these banner typographies, and these are quite intensive. I've always found these run extremely slow, and they're really nice titles, as you can see. So let's just put this gold one on. And again, I'm going to put it roughly in the same place. Let's just get rid of that. And let's just play it back. See, it's not even rendered it. And it plays back beautifully smooth. So I've been really impressed with the performance here. Of course, this is only a small project. Actually, let's leave that on there. This is a small project, but everything that I've done, whether it comes to color correction, adding effects, multi-layering videos, everything runs really, really smooth. So what we're going to do now is we're going to export this project on this Mac here, and then we're going to load up the old Mac and then do the exact same things. I'm going to load up the same project and just show you how this plays. So first of all, this is just going to render, and even the rendering process is much, much quicker than before. You can see it flies through these renders. So we'll wait for this to render, and then we'll do our export for YouTube. Okay, right, so we're all rendered and we're ready to go on this project. Now let's just zoom out a little bit here. We can see that if we just take the audio track down, it's a 5-minute, 41-second project. So not the largest project in the world. This shouldn't be too taxing, but let's do a speed test. So I'm gonna hit export. I'm gonna do the YouTube and Facebook one, just because this is what I use a lot of the time for our videos here. So this is test 1 M1 Mac. I'm going to change the settings. This is going to be in full 4K, in better quality, 1.71 gig. Let's hit next, and let's save that in the RAVPower folder, which is the SSD drive I've got here. And let's start in 3, 2, 1. So we're 35% in, it's taking 3 minutes 30 seconds at the moment. To be honest, I actually thought for this size project, it would be a little bit quicker than this. I thought it would maybe do it in sort of twice real time, but interested to see how long the old MacBook Pro 13-inch takes. One thing to note as well, if you're using the YouTube and Facebook codec, what seems to happen is it seems to take a long time at the start, and then all of a sudden it will just jump to be finished. So it almost never on my old Mac seemed to go to 100%. It would get to 60, 70 and then just say it was done at 100%. So we'll keep a lookout for that. At the moment, we're on 4 minutes and 9 seconds. Okay, so I think it's just done. It's just stopped. It hasn't said it's done. It hasn't popped up with anything either. So that's very, very strange. Let's just stop the stopwatch now. Let's see what's happened. Really strange there. It didn't pop up to say it's done. I'm just going to go into there. It does look like it's done. Yeah, so it did do the video, just jumped suddenly and didn't actually come up with the complete sign, which it normally does, which is very strange actually. We might have to run a second test, but it did that in roughly 6 minutes and 55 seconds. So let's run the same test on our older MacBook Pro and see what we get. That seems a little bit strange. Okay, so we're now on the old 13-inch MacBook Pro, and let's essentially just start where we did last time. Let's just make this a little bit bigger so you can see, and let's go to the same point where we're at Norwich Market. We've got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clips of 4K on the Sony a7S III and the adjustment layer. Just see how it plays back. Let's make sure we're in better quality just to match the previous Mac, and let's play it back. So it's playing back okay at the moment. Slightly juddery, not too bad. I'd be quite happy with this if I was editing at the moment. Now we're going to jump to those 4 clips. And you can see a little bit that some of the clips are jumping very slightly. It's actually not as bad as I thought it would be, if I'm completely honest. And it's playing back fairly smooth now, which is pretty good. So that's actually not too bad. I'm pretty impressed with that. So now let's go over to the clip we did here. And let's add in some of those titles again. So let's go back to our titles. Let's try that 3D rotate. Let's drag that down. Let's drag it across. What do we call it before? It was driving in the countryside. So you can see, even as I'm moving around Final Cut, it's a little bit more laggy when we're opening up the inspector and things like that. I do notice that even just using Final Cut feels quicker on the new MacBook Pro. Okay, so we've got that there. Let's get rid of that. I think that'll do. Okie dokie. Let's play this back. And there you go. You can see that drag and that lag as the animation came in. Let's see if it does it on the outside of the animation. There you go, and you can see it pauses there. So again, not terrible. If you have one of these MacBook Pros and you're doing light video editing, it's still a really good machine. You know, you could probably pick one of these up quite cheap now, but you can see it is a lot laggier and slower. There we go, I was just trying to play back there. There's a little pause. It's not too bad. What you can do, of course, on these older Macs is you can change it to better performance and it will give you a lower sort of resolution copy. You can also create proxies, of course, and that helps the playback speed look much more normal. Of course, this now looks a little bit pixelated, but you know, you do get some okay performance out of it. So let's delete that. Let's add in the gold banner type. Let's see how this one plays back just straight away. Again, not too bad. It seems to actually be playing back a little bit better than it used to. I don't know if it's a recent Final Cut Pro update thing, but that actually looks kind of okay. So next, let's let everything render, and then we'll do the same export test that we did on the 14-inch, which is the YouTube export, and then we'll time that just to see how fast it does. So the time to beat, by the way, is 6 minutes and 55 seconds. As you saw in the test, it just seemed to jump to the end, and it didn't give us that complete sign. So I don't know if something was wrong that time. We may have to do another export test. Maybe it's just a little bit buggy today, but we'll test that and let you know how we go on. So we'll just wait for this to render, and then we will do the export. Now actually quickly, before we jump into the export, you probably can't hear this on camera, but as we're rendering, the fans are really ramping up now. We're on battery on both of these machines, and you can really start to hear the fans on this. I haven't had any fans at all come up on the M1 MacBook Pro as yet, even though we've been taxing it quite hard, and yesterday I was playing with it a lot last night, and I haven't had a single fan come on. So if quietness is an important factor to you, then definitely that's a plus for the M1 Mac. Okay, so this is all rendered. Let's do the export test. Again, I'm going to use YouTube and Facebook quite simply because this is what I use pretty much all the time now for our YouTube videos when I'm on Final Cut. So I'm going to call this one the Intel export. Let's just make sure our settings are the same. 4K, better quality, and that's all there is to it. It's one reason why I love this codec. 1.71 gigabytes. We're going to hit next. We're going to choose it on the RAV power, and then 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Let's open up this so we can see the progress bar. We'll see how fast this does it. So it's roughly 6 minutes 50 to beat. We're not even on 1% as yet, so we could be sitting here a long time. I did feel like the 14-inch MacBook Pro was actually a little bit slower than I imagined it to be, and I was just saying to Lewis off camera that sometimes when you buy a new machine that feels fast, you feel like maybe the new machine isn't that quick until you jump back onto your old machine, and then you realize how slow your old machine is. But at the moment, it doesn't actually seem that quick. It wasn't like the Intel one was jumping up every second. So it'll be interesting to see, was there a little bit of a glitch there on the 14-inch, or is it going to absolutely thrash this last year's Intel 13-inch MacBook Pro? Okay, so we're almost at the halfway point in terms of time, and we're at 19% on here. But as I mentioned before, the YouTube and Facebook export just seems to suddenly jump. So you could be at 50% and then it jumps to 100% done. You could be at 90% and it jumps to 100% done. So it's almost like they haven't worked out the estimation in the sharing setting quite as accurate as all the other settings. So we'll keep an eye on it. We're at 4 minutes, 3 seconds, with 21% done. Let's continue. So we're coming up to about the point where the M1 MacBook Pro had just finished. Around about this time, we're going to check the time code on the video for the exact time. But it's saying at the moment it's 30% done, and we're at 6 minutes 44. So we're going to keep an eye on it. Let's keep this going. Okay, let's mention this now. Okay, so we've just gone past the 12-minute mark and it's saying we're at 40%. Again, this could jump suddenly, but it just shows you already the 14-inch MacBook Pro is already twice as fast. Even if it ended right now, it would be twice as fast as last year's 13-inch MacBook Pro. Now, I know, the 13-inch MacBook Pro isn't really made for video editing, but it is a MacBook Pro, and if you're like me, you like a nice portable machine. That's why I've always gone for the 13-inch, because you can video edit on it. It's just a little bit more sluggish compared to the 16-inch or an iMac. But I've always been, fairly happy with it because the videos that we produce here are fairly short. They're often under 20 minutes long. So it hasn't really bothered me. But this jump is huge. Here we go, and it's just finished at 16 minutes 26. Again, it didn't do the complete sign there, so I don't know if it's a bug in the new version of Final Cut. It just suddenly stopped. Normally you get a notification up here that the video has done, but roughly 16 minutes 26, probably a couple of seconds off that. We'll look back at the time codes. You can see the Intel version is there, but that's crazy. It's a huge difference, 10 minutes difference. On a 5-minute, 14-second export, you've just saved a whole 10 minutes. And I watched a Peter McKinnon video where he made a really good point, is that if you're making newsworthy projects, maybe you're making stuff that has to be out on the day. If you're working on a huge project, maybe an hour long, and the export is an hour long and you go from an hour to maybe 20 minutes, that can be a huge difference, because if you have to make any changes and you have to export it once again, it takes another hour. That's 2 hours of wasted time instead of just 40 minutes. So that's pretty good. I'm pretty impressed with that speed difference. Now let's set up the iMac and have a look at Premiere Pro. Okay, so now we've got the iMac set up and the 14-inch MacBook Pro. I've got Lewis on the right, me on the left, just because it's such a big space. Lewis, if you can just open up the system preferences here, just so we can show people what this Mac is. This is the Mac that we use primarily for Premiere Pro. Now, it's not a new Mac by any means. It's the iMac Retina 5K 27-inch with 3.2 gigahertz quad-core Intel Core i5, 16 gig of RAM, and the AMD 2 gig graphics. So it is a bit of an older machine, so it shouldn't be a massive surprise to anyone if you had a newer iMac that this would be faster. But this is just our real office test. This is what we use for Premiere Pro. So we're going to try this out with the new 14-inch. And what we're going to do first of all is just open up both Premiere Pro projects at the same time, just to see the responsiveness of the machine. So if you're ready, Lewis, let's open up in 3, 2, 1, and just see which one opens quicker. And like us, if you are going from an iMac or an older MacBook Pro, what is the speed difference? Sometimes when you hear that something's 20% faster, 30% faster, you don't notice it. But there we go. On the left-hand side, we can see we've got Final Cut has opened, sorry, not Final Cut, Premiere Pro has opened up very, very quick compared to the iMac here. That has always felt fairly fast, but now we're using this new M1 Mac. You can see even a big difference there in startup time and just the responsiveness of the program. So I think what we should do first, I'm going to let Lewis in because he's the Premiere Pro guy. I'm more of the Final Cut guy. And we can just try a few things with the Premiere Pro with the Premiere Pro project on the right on the iMac, we'll just add some titles and just see how laggy or not laggy it is, and then we'll do a similar setup to the Premiere Pro on the left on the M1 Mac. So let's have a little look at the iMac first. So maybe let's just play it back, let's see what the footage is like if we just play back this project.
We've just got the brand new 14-inch MacBook Pro, and this is the 10-core.
Already we can see it's a slightly lower resolution.
1 terabyte model. So
it's not really skipping any frames as yet, but you can see there when the Editors Keys intro came in, it was skipping some frames. It's looking a little bit laggy.
Our brand new 14-inch MacBook Pro.
There we go. So let's maybe add a title onto this area here, the same sort of title that we can add to each. Drag that on top, and let's see. Just going to change the text. Okay, we're going to play that through. You can see it's not rendered it. Now, not too bad there, but you can see the footage behind is really starting to lag. And we've got this set at 1/8 quality. So it's not like this is set at the highest quality either. So it is a little bit laggy there. What I think we should maybe do before we jump to the new iMac, maybe let's try and render this out and do a little timer on that. So I'll get the timer on my iPhone reset, and you let me know when you're ready to render, and I'll press the start button. So we'll do a little render of this entire project.
Yep.
Okay, so 3, 2, 1, we're starting. We'll see how long this takes to render. So we're just hit 1 minute 15, and we're 23% rendered for this 5-minute project with titles and a few other bits and pieces thrown in like sound effects. Now, while this is rendering, it is important to note as well, it's not just the M1 chip which helps things in Premiere. Obviously, the new 14-inch has more GPU cores, it has faster read and write speeds on the internal drives, and because it's got USB-C, we can use a USB-C hard drive for editing. So it's just something to think about. If you are thinking about upgrading from a slightly older system, it's not just the benefit of the M1, you also get all of the other benefits of being able to use USB-C, having more graphics power. So it's just something to think about, and hopefully we should see a big difference. At the moment, we're at 2 minutes 13 and we're only 28% rendered. So it'll be interesting to see how this does on the M1 Mac. Okay, so we're coming up to near the end, 98%, 99%. 100%, that took 8 minutes, 41 seconds just to render out that around about 5-minute timeline. So now let's have a look at it on the M1 MacBook Pro and see just how it is to play back. We'll change the playback quality to 1/8, see how it is, and see if we can actually play it in full as well. Okay, so now we're on the M1 14-inch MacBook Pro. So we're just gonna have a little play around with it as well. So if we change the playback speed to 1/8, it should be able to play this, but let's just play through a bit of that footage like we did at the start on the other one. Let's just play that through.
And this is the 10-core, 10 CPU, 16 gigabyte, 1 terabyte model. So let's unbox it.
So this is where it tends to slow down, and as you can see, it's powering through that like a champ. No slowdown there at all. Looking pretty good. Okay, so that's good. Let's just see quickly if we can do it with a title on like we did on the last one and see if that slows it down. We'll just chuck another similar style title on from this. And as you saw on the iMac, what happens is it tends to play back okay, but it just kind of slows down the footage underneath.
Thought it would be nice to unbox it for you in this video. So at the end of the video,
so you can see there's no real lag there at all. Maybe let's try doing it to full quality, and really you would probably expect Final Cut. You'd expect Premiere to really kind of slow down. So we'll go back to the start. Let's maybe play that through and just see if it can handle the intro. So this is now at full quality playback. How are we going to do?
We've just got the brand new 14-inch MacBook Pro, and this is the 10-core, 10 CPU.
So again, it usually slows down on our intro graphic.
So let's unbox it.
And again, in full quality, there's little to no, well, no slowdown at all. That played back. How's the second title going to come in?
We just thought it would be nice to unbox it for you.
There we go. To me, it doesn't look like there's any slowdown or drop frames, and this is at full quality. So already, just playing back, you know, with color correction, sound effects and everything in, it's looking like it's doing quite well. So next, let's try and render out this entire 5-minute piece of footage. We'll do a little countdown. Let me know when you're ready, Lewis, and then we'll just see how quickly this will render this timeline before we do the export. So 3, 2, 1. Already you can see it's flying through the render. Last time we were sitting here, you know, sort of chewing our nails waiting for it to render. We're 17 seconds in and we're already over 20% done. So we'll put the time codes on the screen, but it roughly took about 7 to 8 minutes to render this 5-minute project. Already we're at 48 seconds and we're 33% of the way through. Okay, we're nearly coming up to 100%. I'll get ready to stop. We're at 92, 93, 94. There we go, and we're done. And that took 2 minutes and 16 seconds. So even just to render your project, a project of this length, you know, we're saving of around about 5 minutes roughly. We'll put the exact times up on the screen. But even that, just sitting here watching that, you can tell there's a huge difference. This isn't like a normal year when you get, you know, a couple of seconds saved. This is minutes saved on just a render. So what we'll do now is we'll set up to export this project back to the hard drives, and we'll see how quickly this can do it, because I think this is the real test for Premiere. Premiere is quite a slog when it comes to exporting. It does take quite a long time. So we'll see how quickly the new M1 Mac can export this. Okay, so we're going to get the settings ready to export. Now, just before we start filming this, it has crashed twice on the M1 Mac. So we're going to do it again just to show you this in case it does it a third time. So Lewis, if you get the export settings kind of ready to go, what we've found the last 2 times is when we go to File, Export Media, at this point it was crashing. It hasn't done it this time, so fingers crossed. But just aware there do seem to be a few little bugs. So Lewis is going to change the settings and then we'll get ready to export. Okay, so we're ready to export, and we're exporting in H.264 in a YouTube setting that's in Premiere, and we've got use maximum render quality and depth. So that's what we're going to be using. I'll get the timer here ready, and I'll have to press start just after I hit the export, so we'll take a couple of seconds off. But if you're ready, Lewis, and we'll do it in 3, 2, 1. We're hitting start a couple of seconds late, but we'll see how this goes. So already, I mean, we're only 20 seconds in. The iMac is on 2%, and it says estimating time remaining 14 minutes and 33 seconds. The M1 MacBook Pro is on 14%, and it says 3 minutes remaining. So that's quite a big difference if it's true. Okay, so at the 1 minute mark, the M1 14-inch MacBook Pro is on 29, nearly 30%. The iMac is on 6%. So unless something majorly goes wrong, the M1 MacBook Pro is absolutely thrashing the iMac. Okay, so just to jump in here, we're at 3 minutes 17 seconds. It's saying we've got around 21 seconds left, so I'm going to jump in and press the lap button as soon as this is done. But I mean, wow, this does seem a lot faster. I don't think we were expecting to be quite this quick, even though this is an older Mac. The iMac on the right is at 20%, and I think the M1 is just about to finish. Let's see, and it's at 100%. This is sometimes where it lags in Premiere. Let's see, there we go. Roughly 3 minutes 45 seconds to export a 5-minute project. So it's doing it faster than real time, which is really good, and clearly a lot faster than the iMac here on the right hand side. So that's pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive. It's probably one of the fastest export times I've seen on a recent computer. We tried this on the regular M1 Mac, and that wasn't really that quick. It was quicker than this, quicker than the iMac, but only by a little bit. And then the previous Intel MacBook Pros, 16-inch and 13-inch, were never really that much faster, maybe 5%, 10% faster, which is why we never really upgraded the iMac, because it didn't seem like a worthy investment to spend another 2 or 3 grand to save a couple of minutes. But this actually seems like a really, really decent upgrade. Okay, so we're now coming up to roughly 16 minutes. It's still not finished. We're on 95%. It says there's 41 seconds to go, but we know how Premiere can lag at that 100% mark. I'll get ready to jump in. I mean, what's crazy at this point, you could have exported that project on the M1 Mac 5 times. If we get to 80 minutes, it'd be 6 times. You could have exported that same project and the time it takes for this iMac to do it just once. And you know, as mentioned, this is an older iMac, but it just goes to show, if this is what's in your office at the time, at this time, then this is the speed increases you will see upgrading to this new M1 Mac. Here we go, we're about to stop any second, so I will jump in as soon as it's finished. We're at 100%, but it's still not quite finished. And for some reason, it's this part. Let us know in the comments section below if this happens to you. It's this part that seems to take the longest. The 100% can take 2 to 3 minutes to go away sometimes in our experience. There we go. So roughly 17 minutes, 20 seconds to export a 5-minute clip. And on the M1, just 3 minutes 45. That is huge, that is insane. I don't know what it would be like to the iMac Pro, but from the tests I've seen online, even the iMac Pro is getting smashed by this new M1 Mac. So now let's do a couple of little tests with the SD card reader. Okay, just a very quick test. We've got 6 gigabytes of footage on this SD card, and we're going to see how quickly we can copy the entire clip folder to the M1 Mac, and then we'll test it in the older iMac and with an SD card reader. So let me just load up my timer. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. It's going to take about a minute. Obviously, this isn't a huge amount of files, but it just will give you an idea about the speed you can expect. Now, this SD card is a 170 megabytes per second read and write speed. It's the SanDisk card Extreme Pro. Okay, so that took 1 minute and 3 seconds. Let's delete that and let's try it with the SD card reader. I'm going to plug that in. Let's eject this. So this is our editor's keys USB hub. Really handy if you're on any kind of Mac with USB-C and you want some regular USB ports, HDMI, USB-C power through, or headphone. Works with an iPad as well. So let's get this up again. Let's load this up. It's the same clip folder, and we're going to test it out in 1, 2, 3. Now this reader is extremely fast, so I would be surprised actually if it's faster than the inbuilt Mac one, but it does look like it is moving a little bit quicker. Okay, we're coming up to the end. And 1 minute 4, so very, very similar times there. So if you do want an ultra fast SD card reader, check out the editor's keys. One, we'll put the link in the description below, so both extremely fast and very, very similar. Next, let's try out the iMac. So next up, we've got the SD card in the back of the iMac, just to do a speed test of this. Again, let's let go, 3, 2, 1. We can see it's actually moving quite fast. The SD card readers in the iMacs were always pretty good in my opinion, and it seems like it's moving pretty quickly. Okay, and we're coming up to the end now. I'll get ready to stop. There we go, 1 minute 6 seconds. So actually very, very similar in reality, all very close. It could actually be a limitation on the SD card itself. Obviously, if you get a new tough card from Sony, they are a lot faster read and write speed. So for this SanDisk Extreme Pro card, you'll get about the same speed on all of the SD card readers we've shown in this video. So there you go, I hope you've enjoyed this video. This is just a very crude, rough, non-scientific speed test on the new M1 MacBook Pro. And as I mentioned, this is not scientific, as you can tell from this video. This is just a real world studio test. This is what we actually use to edit the videos you see on this channel. This iMac for Premiere Pro, my old 13-inch MacBook Pro for Final Cut. And this is the speed difference you can expect with the new MacBook Pros. And I've got to say, me and this were both pretty blown away. I mean, every year we get a new Mac in and it's like a tiny, tiny little improvement. This year, I think Apple get a big thumbs up from me. It's a lot faster. You've got the SD card readers back. The screen is beautiful. A lot of this stuff I'll mention in the full review, so make sure you subscribe and hit the like button if you want to see that. But just for today, massively impressed with the speed increasements here. So anyway, thanks for watching. Leave any questions or comments below, and I promise we do get back to every single one. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.